Welcome back to Racy Recaps. Today, I'm going to discuss the Australian science fiction film 2067. Warning, spoilers coming. Keep an eye out and be cautious. The film's concept is set in 2067, when the Earth has been wrecked beyond repair due to climate change. All plant life has died off. The quantity of oxygen in the air has reduced rapidly due to the absence of plant life. To live, people must purchase artificial oxygen. 99% of the world's population has gone dark. People die from suffocation. Only one city in Australia has survived under such circumstances, and it is all because to the Chronicorp firm, which creates synthetic oxygen. However, over time, artificial oxygen creates a deadly condition known as the sickness. Humanity has just a few years before it becomes extinct. Ethan White lives in the Australian city. In the Chronicorp company, he and his pal Jude work as mechanics. The firm is also working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to discover a cure for the disease and a solution to preserve the planet. Xanth, Ethan's wife, is likewise afflicted. Ethan works hard all hours of the day and night to make enough money to purchase her better oxygen. Regina Jackson, the Chronicorp CTO of Particle Research, invites Ethan and Jude to her office one day as they are working in the tunnel. She introduces herself to the two and informs them that mankind would perish in a few years if nothing is done to remedy the situation. She then discloses that Ethan is the only one capable of assisting everyone and saving mankind. Ethan is perplexed and does not believe her. Regina, on the other hand, demands that he come to their lab. The lab is equipped with massive gear. Billy Mitchell, the lab doctor, introduces himself to Ethan and takes a brief look at Ethan's wrist gadget. They then tell him that this experiment was launched by Ethan's father, Dr. Richard White, 20 years ago. The equipment in front of them is a time machine known as the Chronicle. In the machine's initial experiment, they had to transmit radio waves into it to see what was on the other side. They discovered that 407 years later, in 2474, the world would have enough flora to keep adequate oxygen in the air and support human existence. People tend to assume that if mankind survives several hundred years, it is probable that they have solved all of the issues that plague their world. However, the experts were perplexed by an unusual behavior. The waves they shot back had regrouped. They decrypted it and discovered that someone from the future had given them the message, "Send Ethan White." So Regina and the rest of the crew want to send Ethan into the future and have him bring back the cure. Ethan is taken aback. He doesn't trust them and believes Regina is bluffing. Furthermore, he does not want to leave his ailing wife and go into the future. As a result, he rejects to assist. Later, Ethan and Jude go to a cafe and purchase crisp oxygen. Jude attempts to convince Ethan to carry out the plan and aid in the salvation of mankind. Ethan, on the other hand, laughs at him and declares that he does not want to be like his father. Ethan despises his father since he is never there for him. His father left home and went missing 20 years ago, and his mother was murdered when he was a child. Since then, he has been raised by Jude, whom Ethan views as both his elder brother and closest friend. He blames him for abandoning his mother to finish the project, and he does not want to follow in his footsteps and abandon his ailing wife. Jude, on the other hand, persuades him that the only way he can rescue his wife is to discover a cure. Ethan recalls his 9th birthday, when his father gave him an odd box as a present. A gadget clamps onto his wrist as he puts his hands inside the box, causing him to bleed. Richard had fitted his youngster with a permanent hand gadget. It's been a long time, but Ethan still doesn't know what it's for. Later, at home, Ethan informs Xanth about all that transpired throughout the day, and she, too, insists on his leaving. Ethan writes, "I shall find my way back to you" on a metal flower and places it alongside Xanth the next morning. He then returns to Regina's office and informs her that if he can only locate one cure, it must be given to Xanth first. Regina accepts and returns him to the lab. Dr. Mitchell shows him the outfit he must wear before entering the machine. Ethan knows they don't have a strategy as they begin to describe the goal to him. They have no idea what he'll see or who he'll meet on the other side. However, after putting him in the suit, they give him the Archie, an AI gadget. Archie will always display Ethan's vitals in the lab. It will also aid in his navigation. Finally, they put him into the machine. Inside, Ethan travels through time at breakneck speed. He plummets from the sky and lands in an uncharted forest. Because the friction from the air causes his suit to catch fire, he swiftly exits it. Then he glances about and is taken aback by nature's splendor. He discovers that the world has altered drastically. The trees and natural oxygen have returned. He follows Archie's instructions and comes to a bunker entrance of some kind. What attracts his attention, though, is a skeleton lying just in front of the entrance. It has a gunshot wound in its head. Furthermore, he examines the name tag and is shocked to discover his own name on it. Ethan owns the skeleton. Ethan also discovers the skeleton's Archie and listens to the final recording on it. He shoots Ethan after hearing a guy suggest that this is the only way. The device's power is then turned off. He is terrified, certain that this is the doom that awaits him. Then he discovers the wrist gadget on the skeleton. It is similar to Ethan's, except that the light in the skeleton's gadget shines green, while Ethan's has always been red. He builds a fire and eats wild berries that night. The berries turned out to be toxic. Ethan vomits and falls unconscious. After a time, Ethan awakens and is astonished to discover Jude in front of him. As it turned out, the lab saw Ethan's vitals decreasing and suspected he was suffering a toxic response. As a result, they hurriedly dispatched Jude to the future with the cure to rescue him. Ethan and Jude discover his bones sometime later, indicating that his destiny hasn't altered. They then use Archie to locate another door. They get entrance by scanning Ethan's eye using a device. When they enter, a monitor greets them. It requests a DNA sample from him. When he takes it, his wrist gadget activates, causing him to bleed. It becomes green after the blood test. The lights come on in the room, and they discover they are in Chronicorp's lab 407 years later. The time machine is also in front of them. Jude is ecstatic since they now have the ability to go back in time. But Ethan is skeptical, claiming that nothing has changed and that he would end up dead, just like the deceased Ethan. When Ethan examines the system log, he discovers a holographic recording recorded by his father, who reveals that the time machine was initially intended to gather oxygen data on the future planet, and then transfer it back to the past. When his father initially turned on the time machine, he got a message urging him to send his son to the future. Despite his reservations, he opted to do so and performed a DNA verification for Ethan here. Soon later, Ethan and Jude learn that the time machine's battery is almost gone after 407 years, and that they would be unable to return. Worse, activating the lab causes a breakdown in its nuclear power core, threatening to spark a nuclear catastrophe in only 4 hours. This means they must figure out how to repair the time machine and go back in time before the disaster. They must act swiftly since time is running out. Outside, they are startled to see a devastated metropolis covered in lush flora, but devoid of humanity, demonstrating that the planet begins to regenerate after human extinction. Human skeletons may be found all over the place. When Ethan arrives at his wife's residence, he discovers her bones, which causes him to despair. Jude attempts to encourage him to return to the past since the remedy for the ailment does not seem to exist even in the future world. Ethan, on the other hand, is skeptical of Jude's remarks. He then switches on the rusted Archie to play the tape again, and this time he recognizes Jude's voice, and it seems Jude is the one who shot him. Jude points his pistol at Ethan, vehemently claiming that he would shoot him. Ethan eventually chooses to finish the assignment first, so they work together to rebuild the power core and then return to the lab. The Chronicle system is now operational, and they should be able to go back in time. All they need to do now is wait 37 minutes for the gateway to open. When the countdown hits 0, the portal will be tethered to 2067 for around 30 seconds. However, Ethan discovers that his corpse is still hidden behind a door in the same spot, implying that they haven't altered the future. To discover the truth, Ethan removes the battery from his current Archie and replaces it with the rusted one. In this manner, he gains access to another video in which Ethan is certain that Jude would murder his future self. Jude then admits that there is no way to change the future and that he is just attempting to protect Ethan. Ethan puts his brother in a room and plays again his father's hologram journal from the day he died, finding it difficult to believe. He soon finds a chat between Regina Jackson, the Chronicorp CTO, and his father. It is revealed that Ethan's father meant to use the time machine to rescue all humanity by discovering a cure, whilst the CTO merely intended to use the machine to leave from the dying period with a select few. However, whichever plan they choose, someone must travel into the future and activate the time machine to safely send living matter through time. An operational link from both sides is required. In order to prevent the CTO from carrying out her plan, his father locks the time machine and uses Ethan's DNA as the verification key. The CTO promptly assassinated Ethan's father in retaliation for what he had just done. She then instructs Jude to murder Ethan's mother and become his guardian so that one day they may use Ethan's bracelet to reach the future. Ethan is taken aback. The guy he believed was his brother turns out to be the one who murdered his mother and is going to murder him as well. He also discovers he had misinterpreted his father, who did not forsake the family on purpose. Knowing Regina plans to send a select few into the future, Ethan attempts to shut off the time machine, but Jude intervenes and explains that he's been brought here by the CTO to guarantee that Ethan is transported in time to correct the power outage. He should murder Ethan once the time machine is activated. Jude, on the other hand, has developed strong emotional bonds with Ethan throughout the years. He is filled with remorse when he sees his brother-like buddy in that position as a result of him. So, rather of shooting Ethan, he shoots himself. Ethan is filled with wrath and guilt as he vows to fulfill his father's last wish, to discover a cure and rescue the dying people. He glances at the display and discovers his father's very first message. He deduces that he sent the message "Send Ethan White." As a result, he encrypts the message again and sends it into the past, along with a slew of other items. Meanwhile, in the year 2067, the CTO and a group of elite selected persons are nervously awaiting the activation of the time machine. To their surprise, the time machine brings back hundreds of extinct plants, as well as a copy of Ethan's father's recorded murder. Soon later, Ethan destroys the time machine, culminating in the failure of the CTO's plot. Finally, the CTO is apprehended for the murder. The plants returned to 2067 are being grown in order to revive the Earth. Ethan's wife gets a bouquet from him and accepts his decision. While Ethan is forced to remain alone in the future world, he buries Jude and forgives him. A butterfly captures his eye and takes him back to the same door, where Ethan is relieved to see that his future self's body has vanished. He runs outdoors to look around and is pleased to discover a futuristic eco-friendly metropolis, as opposed to the abandoned one from before. His choice had altered the course of human history. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this, enable alerts, and leave a like to support the channel. Thank you for watching.